Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Jackson Show. I'm your host, Jack Solomon, and today we are going to be recapping some of this weekend's best games. But before we get into it, I have to ask that you please leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. It always means so much to me, so thank you so much, and let's get straight into the video. Now, we start with the game of the week, or the game with the most hype this weekend. It was one of the only ranked matchups, but it was one of the only matchups between two ranked teams. You had Oregon. They took on USC at home. USC won the toss, wanted the ball, and they took it down the field. Makai Lemon caught a touchdown pass from Jordan Mailata. It was 7-0. USC, Jordan Davidson runs in a touchdown run, make it 7-7. Kenyon Sadiq had an 8-yard touchdown reception from Dante Moore, and that wrapped up the first 14-7. I was watching this game, and I was like, wow, that was the first quarter. It was so action-packed, so much offense, and you love to see it. Now, here's where things get a little crazy, and the scale starts to tip. Makai Lemon throws a touchdown pass to Tanuk Hines. It is 14-14 all. Then Malik Bunson, 85 yards. Punt return touchdown. Then you have Bryce Botcher, the linebacker, running in for a 1-yard touchdown, and it's 28-14 into the half. We come out of the half. Makai Lemon catches another touchdown pass. His third total on the day, making it 21-28. Kenyon Sadiq catching a touchdown pass from Dante Moore in response to that score from USC. Then McRee with a touchdown reception from Jordan Mailata. The Trojans would go for 2. Will not get it. And then Noah Whittington, icing on the cake with a 9-yard touchdown run. Final score of the game, 42-27. Main takeaways are, hey, this Oregon defense. Honestly, when I walked into the game, right, and you start to watch, it's a chess match from the get-go because I didn't know if, I knew it was going to be a chess match, but it was Lincoln Riley's defense, Lincoln Riley's offense, Dan Lanning's defense. Which would be the better of the two? And at the end of the game, it was Dan Lanning's defense. They played incredible, outstanding work with that in that regard. Played a good game. And the offense, I'm still not high on Dante Moore, but the offense played a really good game. So, you got that to look at. So definitely gonna give you that. So, and then for USC, it definitely ends their playoff hopes for sure. But you had an incredible season with Jaden Mailata that I think you look at next year, you look at the season that you have coming up. As long as Mailata stays where he is, I think you're straight. The Illinois loss was a killer. You beat Michigan, and you had a couple of good wins. I think if they beat Illinois, which doesn't seem like a good win, they're in it. So you got to give them that. I give them that at least. Second game that we are going to discuss today is going to be one of the games that I was looking at when I looked at this slate of games. I said there's no games on. I look at this game right here, and I say, hey, this could be an interesting game. It was Pitt versus Georgia Tech. Now, I'm just going to go fast here. Pitt scores the first 4 touchdowns of the game, 2 of them through the air, 2 of them on the ground, 3 of them involving the quarterback, Mason Heidschel, who had himself a great day. Georgia Tech would go back-to-back with touchdowns. It'd be 28-14 heading into the half, just like it was in Eugene. Then a pick 6 in the third quarter, basically putting the game to bed. It was late in the third quarter. It was a turnover by Georgia Tech, run back 100 yards by Braylon Lovelace, and the score became 35-14. Haynes and Kenyon go back-to-back with their own touchdowns, but at the end of the game, it would be Pitt as a 56-yard touchdown run from Jakiron Turner to be the dagger in the heart of the Yellow Jackets. Now, this game is interesting because Georgia Tech, they've played sloppy, but they can still make the conference championship game if they win. Or actually, Georgia Tech, I think, is out. I think Georgia Tech is eliminated from the conference championship game. Pitt, because they're out of conference games. They have no more conference games. Unless you have an SMU loss, a Virginia loss, and a Pitt loss. I think that would probably put them in. And then for Pitt, you look at Pitt, they just need to win out. So they need to beat Miami on Sunday, and they're in. If I had to pick which team would I want to win the ACC, probably Pitt. Basically anybody but Virginia, but if I had to pick, it'd probably be Pitt, SMU, or Georgia Tech. So let's not let Virginia win this conference. They're probably going to beat Virginia Tech, unless they don't. And SMU, I don't know who SMU plays this week, but they probably got some tough competition in front of them. Cal, yeah, that's pretty hard, although Cal just lost to Stanford. But still, you know. Key takeaways from this game, I look, at Pitt, and they're a team to be reckoned with. Now, I was watching the selection show the other day for the college football playoff, and they were talking on the show about how Miami has to make it in as an at-large because it's a long shot for them to make the conference title game. Pitt can completely eliminate them from making it to the conference title game. This was a win-and-in game for Georgia Tech. SMU and Virginia are not going anywhere. And so, yeah. That's that's kind of the way that this works. So, Georgia Tech is out of the ACC championship game stakes. It comes down to Virginia, Pitt, and SMU. And Pitt got the big win last week, so they're on the right track. Moving on to the NFL, Lions? No, it'd actually be the Giants. The 2-9 Giants have not won a game on the road all season, going to Detroit after a tough loss last week. Lions pulling out all the stops, got the all-black jerseys on this week, and they're trying to get a win. So, let's see. Wan'Dale Robinson starting off the game with a little flea flicker touchdown from Jameis Winston. Excuse me, I don't know why I said Jameson, but Jameis Winston, the little flea flicker touchdown, followed by a field goal from Younghoe Koo, making it 10-0 Giants. Then Amon-Ra St. Brown with a touchdown reception from Jared Goff. Finally, they get him involved in the offense, but the Giants answer quickly like that. On the next series, Jameis Winston, touchdown pass to Isaiah Hodgins. Jahmyr Gibbs receives a touchdown pass from Jared Goff. Younghoe Koo kicks a field goal before the halftime, and then Jake Bates would answer that field goal. Halftime score 20-17. Coming out of the half, Gunnar Olszewski, special teams warrior, throws a complete dot to Jameis Winston. I don't know why I keep saying Jameson. But Jameis Winston makes the catch, fights through the defender, scores the touchdown. Giants have a 10-point lead again. This is in the fourth, by the way. Jahmyr Gibbs, 49-yard touchdown run, 27-24. Turnover, Lions punt, Giants punt. Lions go down the field. They kick a field goal, make it 27-27, and then overtime hits. Giants win the toss. They defer. Jahmyr Gibbs, first play of overtime, runs it in for a touchdown. And it's 34-27. Takes them a while, but they finally get the game-winning stop. The final score, 34-27 in favor of the Lions. Lions, last time Detroit was at home, they lost to the Vikings, I believe. Not great. They play at home a couple days from now against the Packers. I've talked about how the Lions, they've played at an inconsistent rate of offense. This today was the or Sunday was the first game where I looked at the Lions and I said, wow, this defense is bad. I haven't said that about many teams. I haven't said about the Lions at all this season. Their defense was the staple of their offense. It helped them. It basically kept their head above the water. Now I look at the Lions and after this game and I say, wow, Jameis Winston really carved them up for 366 yards. It's tough to watch. It was tough to watch. And, it was something that's got to get improved, but I'm making predictions tomorrow. I have no idea, no clue how the Packers are going to look because they have been just as inconsistent on offense as the Lions. They play a decent defense when they want to, but they're just as inconsistent as the Lions. So I have no idea how that game's going to go. I would like to think the Lions are going to step up this week, but the inconsistencies, and it just looks like they're getting healthy, but they need some help in the secondary. Terran Arnold, Brian Branch, you got to keep your eyes on that. And they went after Meek Robertson. They got what they wanted out of him. So, there's that. Last game we're going to recap before we hit the awards. Dallas versus Philadelphia. Oh, I know this is just one of the biggest rivalries in sports, basically. It is one of the biggest rivalries in sports. The final meeting between the Cowboys and the Eagles, Sunday, AT&T Stadium. I don't know if I got the prediction right, but I did call this game. Like I called what would happen. But let's see. Eagles. A.J. Brown, touchdown reception from Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, touchdown run on a draw play. I made you think, and then the next touchdown of the game was a tush-push touchdown. Then Dallas, starting in the first half, had a touchdown pass from Dak to George Pickens. It was a 1-yard touchdown pass. Put the Cowboys on the board 21-7. Then Braven Spanford received a touchdown pass from Dak Prescott. And then Prescott did himself, running it in, tying up the score at 21-21. Then, in the late stages of the game, final seconds on the clock, Brandon Aubrey knocks in a 42-yard field goal. The final score, 24-21, in favor of the Cowboys. Philadelphia made too many mistakes late in this game, and it cost them the game. They didn't look like the same Eagles team in this first half as they did in the second half. They played a significantly worse second half, and they just made too many costly mistakes. I look at, they punted 3 times. They punted so many times in this game. The drives in the second half for Philadelphia, punt, miss field goal, fumble, punt. It's pretty bad. Then you compare that to the drives in the first half. Touchdown, punt. That's it. It doesn't add up because they're starting to look like the inconsistent teams from Green Bay, from Detroit, where they cannot play at a stable level of offense for 4 straight quarters. And they can't carry that straight, consistent offense from week to week. They look good. And they played really good in the first half. And the other thing is Dallas made some good adjustments. It wasn't just Philly, made some terrible play calls in the second half. It was Dallas made some pretty good adjustments. So you got to give credit where credit is due. Dallas made good adjustments. Philadelphia wasn't able to adjust to the adjustments made by Dallas. And so then it was a lose for Philly. Lose to your rival, you're 8-3. And then the other thing with Philadelphia, before I kind of end it here, or the other thing with Dallas, before I kind of end it where I'm at, is defense played great. It was surprising to me to see Dallas's defense play as good as they did, especially in the second half. I mentioned there were a couple punts, they had a couple 3-and-outs. They had one in the first half, a couple coming out of the third, or going in the third, coming out of the half. They just looked, and they played really good if you're Dallas. I give him props. I give him credit because the adjustments made on defense won that team the game. Now it's time for the weekly awards. As per usual, we start in the college football world. The game of the week: Kansas State versus Utah. Kansas State, surprisingly, in this game. And Utah, on the verge of being upset, they had to score 50 points to win the game. Devin Dampierre played excellent when he wanted to. But Utah cause for concern, especially with the team that's trying to make a playoff push. And the other thing with Utah is, this was easily a trap game. You're looking ahead to Kansas. You see what they have. But they lost to Iowa State this week too. So just got to keep your head up. Play who's in front of you, like Michigan did this week. Tulsa versus Army, comeback of the week. Tulsa, I'm not going to talk much about this game because I didn't watch it in full length, but Tulsa was down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They came back. I think they had a couple of field goals in the quarter, and they were able to win the game versus Army. Upset of the week is Wisconsin versus Illinois. I love the storyline how Wisconsin comes out, they say Luke Fickell's not getting fired, and then immediately they start rattling off wins and wins and wins. And it's kind of like Luke Fickell understands that, hey, if we don't do anything now, I'm most likely going to get fired. They'll go back on that word they just made and fire me. So, or maybe maybe I'm just reading too much into the situation, but I love how every just national media talking about, well, Luke Fickell beating these top 25 teams. Oh, it's because his job is secure. I love that. I would say that too, but I think that he's just preparing better going in. And then blowout of the week goes to Notre Dame versus Syracuse. I was going to give it to Oregon USC. I think another one I was going to give it to was Michigan versus Maryland. But Notre Dame scored 70 points, and you cannot deny a fantastic performance from Notre Dame. Nominees for this week's Player of the Week: Diego Pavia went 33 for 39 with 484 yards and 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Carson Beck went 27 for 32, 320 yards, 4 touchdowns on the day. But the Player of the Week, those were the 2 nominees. The Player of the Week goes to Arch Manning. 18 for 30, 389 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 2 carries for 5 yards and a rushing touchdown, and 1 receiving touchdown. That's 6 total touchdowns on the day, and a Texas blowout versus Arkansas. I get it. It's Arkansas. And it probably should have given it to Dante Moore because he had the best performance against the best team. But I give it to Arch. You don't see many weeks where the quarterback has 6 touchdowns. You got to give props where props are due. I give it there. Now, with the NFL, game of the week, I give it Giants-Lions. Comeback of the week, Cowboys-Eagles. I didn't mention this, but I think it tied. The Cowboys comeback tied their largest comeback in franchise history. 21-0. Upset of the week, Texans-Bills. I was reading some of the stuff that came out after the game, and it said Texas defense makes a stand. What can the Lions learn? I was like, okay. We're kind of jumping the gun, which I love, but the point is the Texans defense is keeping them in the season. It's not Davis Mills. Trust me, it ain't Davis Mills or anybody on that offense. Nico Collins got injured halfway through this game. They don't have Tank Dell, right? They don't have CJ Stroud. It's Davis Mills, Joe Mixon, who's underperforming, Higgins and Noel, and Xavier Hutchinson. I know a lot of people don't know a lot of people on that Texas offense. That's why I say it's the defense that's really carrying them. I don't know if Stingley played Thursday night. And then blowout of the week, Buccaneers versus Rams. I was asking around the other day, and it just occurred to me that the Lions broke the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have not won a game since they played the 49ers. They went to Detroit, lost in Detroit, and granted, they have had a couple of close games since then, but they have not played to the same level that they've played at since they played that 49ers game. They are broken, and Baker Mayfield hurt his shoulder the other day. So the MRI came back positive for the Buccaneers. It was a good MRI. Nothing major, but I still look at this. I still look at this game, and I still look at the Buccaneers season, and I say, wow, Carolina actually has a chance to win the division. And I don't want to admit that Carolina has a chance to win the division, but the Buccaneers, they probably have a chance to chuck it away. There's probably a small chance. Now, our nominees for NFL Player of the Week: James Winston, outstanding game versus the Lions. 18 for 36, 366 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 1 receiving touchdown. Our other nominee is Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys. 26 for 36. I don't know why, but I didn't put the yards. Give me a second to go find it. 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 interception. The yards is the most impressive thing. 354 yards, and 1.32 passer rating. But history was made as I decided to give our Player of the Week for the NFL to Jahmyr Gibbs. 15 carries, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 receiving touchdown as well. Impressive. Plus, he had 2 touchdowns that kept the Lions in that game. So I think we all Lions fans around the world, love Jahmyr Gibbs. Want to give him a big thank you. And I want to give you a thank you because you listened to today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Jackson Show. I always enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of the Jackson Show. And as always, bring a friend.